All right, welcome back to the Alabama football recruiting show. We're on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Just to give you guys kind of the latest going on. We've seen some big news happen this week with a few kids, a few announcements, and then the Alabama and LSU game obviously this weekend. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. To tell you guys, which key targets are going to be down in Baton Rouge that Alabama and LSU are fighting for right now, and the Alabama coaching staff also going to be on the road tomorrow night. So I'm going to let y'all know which kids they're going to go see. And there may be some kids they go see during the day, may not go to their game on Friday night, but they're going to make some key stops, see some big-time players tomorrow night. So quickly, we're going to go over two things real quick. Rashad Cheney, defensive lineman out of Georgia who committed to Alabama during the spring, announced his decommitment from Alabama yesterday. We kind of been expecting this for a very long time, and if you've been following the our videos here on YouTube, if you're a member of BamaInsider.com, we've been telling everybody that the timing was everything. I mean, this was going to happen. We just weren't sure when it was going to happen. Alabama really hadn't been in communication with Rashad Cheney since probably June. Hasn't visited, never made it to any of the cookouts. I think they just, decided that wasn't the way that they were going to go. And, I don't know if he, even probably considered himself a commitment to Alabama for the last few months. I think he just never really publicly went out and said that. And yesterday he finally did. So every time we've been talking about defensive linemen, our overall numbers in the recruiting class, we've kind of been saying don't really include him because he's not a part of the class. So I keep seeing people say, oh well, we are we have a new spot that's opened up now. No, it's still the same spots. It's just this kid finally went ahead and reopened his recruitment. So moving on from that. Rondell Robinson announced his commitment kind of surprisingly today to Kentucky, and that kind of changed in the last 24 hours. A lot of people assumed he was going to Nebraska. I mean, that seemed like that was pretty much dead set that he was going to Nebraska, and then last night had a change of heart, and we heard about it early this morning. We posted it on the Bama Insider board that we expected him to go to Kentucky. Of course, our new forecast on Rivals, it doesn't let you change, I think, within 24 hours of an announcement. So we weren't able to go on there and make a change. But so it still says that I predicted Nebraska. But you went on the Bama Insider board prior to his announcement, you would have seen that we posted on there that we felt like he was going to go to Kentucky. Rondell Robinson, great player. I mean, I saw somebody mention like Rondell Moore, who went to Purdue and is having such an incredible freshman season. He could be that type of player for Kentucky. Was it going to be that type of player at Alabama or Ohio State, somebody like that? Maybe. I mean, I think he's a great player, but Alabama just never really made that strong push for him. Very few numbers at the wide receiver position this year, and Alabama actually didn't recruit Rondell as a wide receiver. They recruited him more as an athlete. They really only want to get one more receiver if they can get one more receiver, and that main target is George Pickens, the Auburn commitment. And if they don't get him, I don't think they'll get another. I think they'd still be just fine with one wide receiver in the class. So Rondell Robinson off the board. A lot of fans. It seemed like we're really pushing, hoping he would join Alabama's class, but we kind of knew that Alabama wasn't really pushing that hard for him. Now, if he would have said, "Hey, I want to commit to Alabama," they probably would have taken him. I think they really liked him a lot as a player, as a kid, as a person, and just like I said, just did not make that overall massive push for him like we've seen with some other top tier kids. Now, what I want to get into next is I just want to talk about. A lot of kids are going to be at this Alabama LSU game, and I don't know if some of you saw the story a couple of days ago. We put out, basically, past recruiting battles between the two programs, which I've been covering recruiting for a long time. I've been watching it for a very long time between Alabama and LSU. Obviously, we didn't really get to see that until Nick Saban, got on board. And first place he went to when he was became the head coach at Alabama was the state of Louisiana. I mean, I remember when he went down there to see Joe McKnight. He went down there to see actually flip Luther Davis, who was committed to LSU. That was, I guess, Alabama's first big kind of big win in the state of Louisiana, going in there and flipping Luther Davis away from LSU pretty quickly. He was only on camp, or I think he'd only been at Alabama for about 2 or 3 weeks, and was able to go in there and flip an LSU commitment. So thought that was huge back then. And then obviously we've seen so many big time players from the state of Louisiana who have made such an impact in Tuscaloosa. Guys like Landon Collins and Cam Robinson and Eddie, I was about to say Eddie Smith, but Eddie Smith is from Louisiana. But I was thinking Eddie Lacy. So a lot of really good players from the state of Louisiana. Dylan Moses, starting inside linebacker, and then just so many great recruiting battles. And last year, looking at that, really intense recruiting battle all the way until signing day between Alabama and LSU for Patrick Surtain Jr. I mean, nobody, hardly anybody. We don't want to say nobody. There's always a few people who are thinking they feel good about a kid, but most everybody assumed he was going to go to LSU last year and ends up at Alabama. So we're going to continue to see great recruiting battles between the two schools. We're seeing some great ones this year. That's going on, and we're going to talk about some of those kids. But I'm going to go over the visitors list real quick for this weekend down in Louisiana, down in Baton Rouge. Just some top kids who are going to be there that are looking at both programs. I'm going to start, just with a few Alabama commitments that are going to be at the game. And see Byron Young, the 4-star defensive lineman out of Mississippi. Of course, I talked to Byron the other day. I said, "What's your prediction for the game?" He said 42-21. So it's a big 21-point win. He's predicting for Alabama, even though he's going to be a guest of LSU this weekend. Christian Williams, the 4-star DB out of Daphne, who has been kind of talking to LSU a little bit last few months. Went down there a few weeks ago, so definitely some interest there. Now, we might see Talia Tagovailoa down there. Ed Orgeron went to his game last week when he had that big win against Hewitt-Trussville. Thompson beat Hewitt-Trussville last Friday night. Ed Orgeron was at that game, so might see Talia down there. I think he's on the visitors list. Obviously, it's going to be a little awkward for him just because we know who his brother is and who's going to be on the other side of the field. So obviously, his family will be there cheering for his brother Tua, and so that'll be a little awkward if he's there as a guest of LSU. But some big targets that are not committed, still going, still taking all their visits. We'll talk about Ishmael Sopsher, the 5-star defensive lineman from the state of Louisiana, visited Alabama a couple weekends ago. He's going to be in town. I think this is his first visit to LSU in quite a while as well. So going to be big for him to see his top two schools. Trey Sanders, 5-star running back. Actually, Trey's playing at Hoover High School against Hoover High School on Friday night. Then he's heading down to Baton Rouge. A couple defensive backs that are going to be at the game. Marcus Banks, who just recently decommitted from LSU. In fact, I spoke to Marcus Banks the other night, and he actually, even though he just decommitted from LSU, still has LSU in his top 2 or 3 schools. Going to be down there this weekend. He told me that he also predicts an Alabama win this weekend. And for the Bama Bama Insider subscribers, we're going to have a lot of predictions posted on Friday morning. These are guys a lot of recruits that I've talked to over the last few days who've given me their predictions for the game this weekend. So I'm going to post all that on BamaInsider.com tomorrow morning. So be sure to look for that. A couple other kids that are going to be there. Nathan Pickering. We know about him, Mississippi State commitment, 4-star defensive lineman. Big time target for both schools. Jeffrey Carter, I think he's taking an official visit this weekend. 4-star defensive back out of Texas, who is currently committed to Texas A&M, but definitely has a lot of interest in Alabama and LSU. One of the kids who's not going to be there, kind of surprisingly, Nakobe Dean, top inside linebacker in the country. I think he's visiting Auburn this weekend, but he has Alabama and LSU as 2 of his top top tier schools. So those are some of the main guys that are going to be at the game that are looking at Alabama and LSU, excuse me. And another kid, Tyrion Davis, committed to LSU, still going to take an official to Alabama. So that's another kid that we'll be keeping an eye on this weekend as well. So I've gone over the visitors list, key visitors that are going to be at the game. I'm going to take a couple questions, and then I'm going to let y'all know exactly where the Alabama coaches are going to be tomorrow night as they hit the road. Not a lot of coaches on the road, just a couple. But they're going to go see some big targets tomorrow night. So let me scroll through some of these questions real quick, see what we got. Who do you think will be the best college player out of the kids in the Thompson versus Hewitt game? God, that's a good question. I mean, Tully is something else. I mean, watching him the other night against Hewitt, I mean, he was just just had an unbelievable performance. And I don't think you just never know what may happen with some of these offensive linemen. I mean, Pierce Quick, Amari Kite, these guys have so much upside and potential that they could have unbelievable college careers. Obviously they've got some. Both schools have some juniors that are really good, some sophomores that are really good. So I'm gonna be interested to see how all these guys shape out because definitely two schools with more prospects than we've almost ever seen before. If we don't get Sanders, do you think we can get Emery? John Emery, another big time target that's going to be at the LSU game this weekend. Just recently decommitted from Georgia. I would say that he's probably a strong lean to LSU. That's what everybody assumes. And Alabama wasn't even in his top 8 when he committed to Georgia a couple months ago. But now Alabama's in it. Sort of. He's going to take an official visit. I still think Trey Sanders ends up at Alabama. If they could get it, John Emery, they'd be really excited. But as of right now, still probably leaning strong lean to for LSU for John Emery. Let's see here. Just a lot of comments here. Just trying to go through some of these. Anything new on Brian Breesy? Brian Breesy, one of the top 5 overall players in the 2020 class from Maryland, visited Alabama for the Missouri game. Nothing really changed since then. I mean, still, I think he still has a lot of interest in Alabama. That hasn't changed in the last few weeks. He spoke very highly of the trip. A few weeks ago, we posted that interview on BamaInsider.com. So if you search Brian Breesy, you go back and read that story on Rivals.com. I think things are well with him, but still a long way to go. Clay Webb, what's the latest with Clay Webb? Not a whole lot. I mean, still the same. I mean, Alabama went to see him last Friday. Brent Key, Alabama offensive line coach, spent a lot of time with him and his mom. Then they went. Brent Key went and watched him play against Gardendale on Friday night. Excuse me. I still think things are pretty good there with Clay. Still kind of a toss-up. I mean, a lot of people say, well, he's one of the top in-state players in Alabama. He's got such a great relationship with the coaching staff. That must mean that he's probably going to go to Alabama. Well, Clay's just such a quiet kid, doesn't really say a ton, keeps everything, pretty close to the vest. So I think it's still a toss-up as to what he's going to do. If I had to make just a prediction, I'd say Alabama, but it wouldn't be a very strong prediction. I think he could, really go to, a couple different schools. Let's see here. Do you see anyone else decommitting from the class or gray shirting? There are some guys that are still taking some visits, and we know, these guys. Christian Williams, going to make his second visit to LSU this weekend. Justin Bojabe, sometimes I can't even say it right. Bojabe, my bad. So I got that right that time. Bojabe, he's still taking some visits. I think he's going to be at Tennessee this weekend. I think he's locked in a trip to Miami on December the 4th, I believe. And then I think he's going to be at Alabama on December the 14th. My guess is with him, when he makes that trip to Tuscaloosa on December the 14th, that will be his last visit, and he'll shut it down. Byron Young, obviously, just mentioned him going down to LSU this weekend, so he's one they're still having to recruit. They're not really trying to get rid of any other commitments that are in their class. I mean, all these guys that are in their class, they want to keep. Now, Rashad Cheney, like I said, we've known for a while that he wasn't going to be in the class. That was one guy that we just knew that, Alabama and him were going to part ways at some point. So right now, we'll watch some of these guys pretty closely, especially, the defensive linemen who are still taking visits, Christian Williams. And I mentioned Talia earlier in the week as just one to watch. I'm not trying to worry anybody about that. I mean, everybody thinks, oh, that's crazy to think that Talia Tagovailoa would leave Alabama, would leave the recruiting class, especially with Tua at Alabama. But I think with him still taking some visits, kind of enjoying the process, he's going to give some serious looks at these schools and enjoy these the visits that he goes on. But in the end, I do think he ends up sticking with Alabama. I don't really think there's much to worry about there. I don't have a good feeling about Sopsher or Pickering signing with Bama, but a lot of people think otherwise. Do you? I get a lot of grief sometimes because it seems like there's other reporters who are out there who cover Alabama who are, I guess, they're making their own predictions, and everybody wants me to make my own prediction. So a lot of people are saying that Sopsher is a strong lean to Alabama. Well, I don't think that's the case at all. I think he likes Alabama. I think Alabama's very high on his list. They're in his top 2, but I think it's a long way to go. He's going to announce a decision on signing day in February, not December, in February. So, a lot can happen between now and then. I just let it play out. In a couple months, I'll probably be ready to make that final prediction. I think it's just, I think it's close. I think it's really close. I've been saying LSU going to be tough to beat, and I think they will be tough to beat. They're always tough to beat for an elite player in the state of Louisiana who they're just, going so hard after. I mean, that's going to be tough to beat. But I do think Alabama has made a very, put themselves in a very strong position with him as well. Nathan Pickering. I think Pickering, I could see him flipping, but at the same time, he says so many positive things about Mississippi State just almost every single day on his social media that you just kind of find it hard to believe that he's going to end up flipping. So, we'll wait and see what happens. He's going to take all of his visits and then make a final decision. Let me see here. What's my prediction for the Bama LSU game? Well, I think there's going to be some points put on the board. I don't think they're going to be able to slow Alabama's offense down much. I'm probably in the maybe the 41 to 24 type range. They might end up scoring a few points on Alabama as well, but it's going to be a big environment, home environment. But maybe like something like 41-24, 41-20. Yeah, I think Alabama can go down there, and despite the night game at Death Valley, it hadn't really affected Alabama too much through the last few years. They've been able to go down there and win still. So I think they'll go down there and handle business. What are the chances that Siaki Akea and Ty Robinson are in this class? A lot of people have been, asking me about Siaki Akea a lot. I think some people have been predicting him to Alabama. Alabama has 5 very, very good defensive line commitments right now. I mean, I would, put that defensive line class up against anybody in the country. So with 5 defensive linemen, I mean, a lot of people say, well, maybe they'll take 6, maybe they'll take 7. Well, they probably definitely take 6 because they're still recruiting so many guys like Ismail Sopsher, Jaquez Sorrells, Ty Robinson, Nathan Pickering. Those are the guys that I feel like are Alabama's top 4. They're not going to say no to any of those guys. Now, when one commits, will they possibly take a step back and say, all right, we've got one on board. We got to figure out if we're going to take another. And they might do something like that. But any 4 of those guys want to commit right now, Alabama would say, absolutely, we want you. So I think right now, they're probably going to wait, see what happens. And then maybe a guy like Siaki Akea, there's some other defensive linemen out there that are still being recruited by Alabama. But I think they're going to wait and see what happens with their top 4 guys before making any decisions on anybody else right now. Let's see. What commits can you see making an instant impact next year? I always go with the kids who arrive early. The kids who are going to graduate in December, they're going to enroll on campus in January. So you got to think of Antonio Alfano. I mean, one of the best defensive linemen in the country, having an unbelievable senior season. I definitely think that he's got a chance to possibly be one of those type early impact type guys. So I'd watch out for him. He's going to be on campus in January. Will Ricard, the top kicker in the country, attends Hoover, not committed. I'm sure he's committed to Hoover's football team, but yeah, I think he's got a chance to come in and make a big impact. And a lot of people say, "Oh, well, we've had top kickers come in before and they haven't worked out in the past. This is going to work out. I think Alabama's going to be very, very okay." So those are some guys that I would keep a close eye on for next year. Let's see. Does a guy's social media comments give indication of what schools he might choose? Sometimes it's hard to read. It's hard to you got to go back and think, what's a 17 or 18-year-old kid thinking? And if I was 17 or 18 years old, I would be trolling the heck out of you guys nonstop. I mean, there's just I just loved having fun in high school, and that's what I would do. And even though people, there's so many fans and people want them to be professional, they're still in high school. They're still having fun. And they're going to mess with people's minds. Even though people, freak out about it and think they should be more mature than that, it doesn't always happen that way. They're having fun. It's like somebody freaks out when they see like a kid wearing a team's gloves on Friday night in their football game, or a bandana, or anything. I mean, I remember Marlon Humphrey used to wear Florida State gloves almost every single Friday night during his senior season. Made everybody think that he was going to Florida State, but obviously he didn't. But it's hard to look into all that. I mean, you try to follow as much as you can and check things out. I remember when this summer, Jeffrey Carter, we thought that he was a private commitment to Alabama. Probably was. Had at least told Alabama that he was probably coming, but probably in like the last 2 weeks, I mean, everything I saw him retweet or post was always, or like on Twitter and stuff like that was, everything Texas A&M. I mean, you just always saw so many likes about Texas A&M. So it made you think, you're not getting any likes, you're not getting any retweets, you're not talking back and forth with any Alabama commitments, stuff like that, or any other schools, LSU or whoever it may be. You're only liking and posting pro stuff about one school. So sometimes it makes you think, okay, that's where he's going. But a lot of times they're trolling everybody. So you also have to be cautious of that. Do I think Evan Neal will end up in this class, the 5-star offensive tackle from IMG Academy? I think Alabama's got a good chance with him. I really do. With Jonah Williams leaving, probably leaving after this year, you got to think that the left tackle position is going to be kind of open for grabs, or at least one of the tackle positions. So, I definitely think Alabama's got a really good chance to get Evan Neal. I think even he one of those kids who decommitted from Alabama early on. A lot of times we don't see those kids end up back in the class. He's one of those kids that I could see back in the class. Let's see. Do you have an update on Pickens? Not right now. I mean, still kind of the same thing. He's still committed to Auburn. I still think he's going to decommit at some point, but and just reopen things. I don't see him flipping. I see him reopening his recruitment at some point, but hasn't happened yet. I saw some crystal balls that believe Dean is leaning towards Georgia. Thoughts? Nakobe Dean. I think there's 4 schools that are probably that he really likes a lot, and all 4 of those schools probably think they're getting him. He's really high on Alabama, really high on Florida State, really high on Georgia, really high on LSU. Now, he also likes Mississippi State, and I think I may be off, but for some reason I'm thinking, he is going to Auburn this weekend, so that's another school. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's a long way to go before he makes a decision. He has already taken a visit to his official visit to Alabama. But I talked to N'Kobe, I think 2 nights ago, and he told me that he's going to be back in Tuscaloosa for the Iron Bowl. So he'll be back in Alabama, and yeah, I definitely think that Georgia's very strongly in contention for him. But so are a lot of other schools. Anything new on Chris Bogle? The edge rusher out of South Florida, major target for Alabama. And I've said this for a while now. Alabama really wants to get an edge rusher, whether that's Chris Bogle, whether it's Kayvon Thibodeau, Nolan Smith, who I don't think he's going to flip from Georgia. So it'll probably come down to Kayvon Thibodeau and Chris Bogle in terms of, Alabama really hopes they can get one of those guys. Bogle, I think he's going to be on campus at Alabama next weekend. I don't think it's officially set, but I think we will probably see him in Tuscaloosa for the Mississippi State game. Joe Panunzio, Alabama's running backs coach, an area recruiter, went down to see him last Friday. So Alabama has been to see him here recently, and I think Alabama's definitely in the race for him. Let's see. Do I think that this will be Alabama's best class that Saban's ever had? Well, a lot depends on how they close. They have the number one class in the country right now without a single 5-star. How many 5-star kids do they end up with? How many Rivals 100 kids do they end up with? I mean, they've got a chance to close extremely strong. When you think about the guys that are still left on their recruiting board, just on the offensive side of the ball, you have, Trey Sanders, Clay Webb, Darnell Wright, Evan Neal, George Pickens. These are all guys that they're in the running for. All guys that are rated 5 stars. Then you look at your defensive side of the ball with Ishmael Sopsher and Henry Tolatola and N'Kobe Dean. Obviously some defensive backs that they're still going after, like Marcus Banks and Jeffrey Carter and Akeem Dent and Noah Pola Gates. You got to think that Alabama's got a chance to sign or add maybe 2 of those guys to the class. So, yeah, I think Alabama's got a chance to definitely have one of their best classes in the Nick Saban era. But they also have to close strong. I mean, we talk about all these kids all the time and how Alabama's in good shape with them, but they're still not committed. They're still taking visits, and Alabama still has to close strong. What do I think about Jameson Williams going to Ohio State? Don't really think much about it. I think he's a very, very good football player. I saw him at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge. He looked really good down there, and I know. If this was like one of those receiver years where Alabama was trying to get 3 or 4 wide receivers, they would have gone as hard as possible on him. Now they did recruit him pretty hard because they liked him a lot. But at the same time, really only going to take 1 or 2 wide receivers in this class. They already have John Mechie on board, George Pickens, number 1 target right now. So, I still think that Jameson Williams has a chance to be a special player at Ohio State. In your opinion, who are the 3 most important guys left? It's kind of tough to say because I think there's some big name targets, especially, some top guys on the defensive line. But, with Alabama already having 5 defensive line commitments, everything else is just kind of icing on the cake. If you get Sopsher, obviously you got one of the best defensive line classes ever. But I think some other positions, there's still some priority, targets, especially at inside linebacker. So, you really need to get Alabama really needs to get somebody like Henry Tolatola or N'Kobe Dean. I mean, I think you've got to close with one of those guys. And then, offensive tackle. I mean, even though Alabama's got a couple really good guys, Pierce Quick, Amari Kite, those guys could, I think Kite's going to stick at tackle, but I could see Pierce move inside. I could see Pierce being an offensive guard in college. But Pierce is having a really good senior season, but could still see him move inside the guard. So Alabama's got 2 guys that are really, really good that can be, potential All-Americans that they're recruiting. At the left tackle position, Darnell Wright and Evan Neal. I mean, those are, 2 elite tackles. So I think Alabama really needs to get one of those guys. And I also, even though this, a lot of people may say, how can that be? I think Trey Sanders is a very important target for this class because you look at the running back backfield right now. Damian Harris, senior, going to be gone next year. Josh Jacobs, you look at his performance this year, doing so many different things. Yeah, I'm not so sure that he might be around next year. You may see Josh Jacobs decide to go out early for the draft, and then you have Najee, Brian Robinson still. Alabama really needs to get a running back. They've got Keelan Robinson, who's committed, but kind of a different back. He's under 190 pounds, so they're still looking for that big bruiser. They want 210 pound plus running back, and Trey Sanders is that guy. So he's a very important piece to this class. So I'd go right now probably Trey Sanders or any running back. Even if they could get John Emery, so Trey Sanders or John Emery at running back. Evan Neal or Darnell right tackle, and Henry Toller or Nakobe Dean at inside linebacker. Let's see here. Who is Bama most likely to flip who are committed elsewhere? Well, I used to say Marcus Banks, but he decommitted. George Pickens, I'll still say. I think he'll reopen his recruitment, not flip. I think he'll reopen and take all of his visits. I'd also keep an eye on Jeffrey Carter, a 4-star DB committed to A&M. He's going to be at LSU this weekend. He's going to be at Alabama for the Iron Bowl. So I definitely think he's a big time kid to keep an eye on. There's a couple of DBs that are committed elsewhere that Alabama is still heavily recruiting. Jeff Carter, Akeem Dent, Florida State commitment. So those are a few names to that we'll continue to watch. And like I said earlier, George Pickens, Alabama's still involved with Nathan Pickering. They might get Christian Harris back on campus for a visit, but I don't think he's going to flip from Texas A&M. So I do think that I would not be surprised if we see them flip someone between now and signing day. Does Ryan Davis have serious interest in Alabama? Ryan Davis committed to Georgia. Now, he tore his ACL a few weeks ago. So I think, and I'm not saying Alabama's kind of pushing him aside, but I think that he's probably locked in on Georgia now, trying to get his knee better and do all that stuff. So I just think that, not a lot's going to change there. He's going to end up signing with Georgia. All right. That's it for the questions. I am going to go back to telling you guys who Alabama is going to go see tonight, and then I'm going to get out of here. It's tomorrow night, excuse me. All right, so first things first, Ishmael Sopsher, 5-star defensive tackle. And I talked about this last week because we talked about all the top targets that Alabama was going to go see last Friday. A lot of people were surprised when I didn't mention Ishmael Sopsher. So Ishmael Sopsher going to be seen by the coaches on Friday. John Emery, who just decommitted from Georgia, another kid that Alabama's going to see on Friday, Rivals 100 running back. They're also going to see Tyrion Davis, LSU commitment, 4-star running back. I think he's going to be taking an official visit on December the 14th, 15th. So we're going to see at least one LSU commitment in Tuscaloosa for an official visit. And then I think Joe Panunzio is going to head back down to South Florida. He was there last weekend. He saw Chris Bogle, saw a couple other guys, Akeem Dent. He's going to be back in South Florida before heading over to Baton Rouge. He's going to see St. Thomas Aquinas, and they are playing, and they've got a couple big names: Jordan Battle, the Ohio State safety commitment that Alabama's trying to flip, and also Braylon Ingram, the recent Alabama commitment, committed to Alabama last week. So he's going to see those guys. And like I said, Ishmael Sopsher, Tyrion Davis, John Emery, all going to get visits from the Alabama coaching staff tomorrow as well. got a lot coming on BamaInsider.com tomorrow. So stay tuned. We got a couple really big interviews that I think Alabama fans are going to really enjoy. We got some predictions from a lot of recruits that gave their predictions for the Alabama LSU game. And like I said, if you're not a member of BamaInsider.com, check us out. You can do a 30-day free trial. I think you'll stick around after those 30 days, but at least try us out. Tony Sakalas, Kyle Henderson do a great job covering the team. I have it all on the recruiting side. So thank you all for joining this evening, and enjoy the game this weekend. It's going to be a fun weekend. And if you're traveling down there, be safe and have a good week. Bye.